With the latest on the FBI's raid of Mar-a-Lago, the former president's latest criticism of the FBI, Bianca, comes just one day before federal judge Bruce Reinhart will weigh those requests to unseal the DOJ affidavit. That hearing taking place in West Palm Beach tomorrow.
And now, in a post on Truth Social, Trump compared the FBI agents who took his stuff to, quote, common criminals who he says grabbed everything in sight. His family today is also vowing to release those surveillance tapes of the raid, John. As you know, Eric Trump is saying they watched the whole thing unfold from New York, and it will be shown to the American people, they say, quote, at the right time. Now, we've also learned that the FBI has interviewed former White House counsel Pat Cipollone and his deputy Patrick Philbin as part of the probe into the sensitive documents reportedly stored at the president's Palm Beach compound. And according to the New York Times now, Philbin's interview was conducted in the spring. It's unclear, though, when Cipollone was questioned. Former President Trump maintains that the records were all declassified and placed in secure storage.
Well, here is another reason why the DOJ has got to get out in front of the story and be more transparent. The American public doesn't trust the Attorney General. A new Rasmussen poll shows that just 42% of Americans have just 36% of Americans have a favorable view of the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Of course, Garland spent weeks deciding to sign off on that Mar-a-Lago search warrant, which raises a lot of questions about the urgency of the raid. Let's welcome in now former acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, Newsmax analyst. Great to have you with us, Matthew.
Hey, John. Good to be with you and Bianca.
So why do you think the Justice Department is fighting so hard to keep this affidavit sealed? And also, what's your reaction to the FBI interviewing Cipollone here and his deputy?
Yeah, so what I see happening in this case is, that obviously they have a strategy to investigate what they allege are these crimes. We saw a little bit of it in the search warrant. We saw a little bit of it in what they recovered from Mar-a-Lago. But obviously the affidavit is going to be the roadmap to the investigation. It's going to talk about the witnesses that they've interviewed, the probable cause that a crime has been committed. And so that affidavit is very important. You know, the interesting thing also is, remember, this hearing tomorrow is being brought by the New York Times and other press outlets wanting to release the affidavit. It's being defended by the Department of Justice, who doesn't want the release at all. It's going to be very interesting to see how that hearing goes tomorrow. Yeah,
the New York Times. I mean, everybody wants to know what the justification for this raid was. And going back to the timeline here, Cipollone and this deputy interviewed back in spring. We know that the feds had already been there, and then Merrick Garland waiting a couple weeks. How do they make the case that this was such a urgent mission that they had to get done at nighttime on Monday?
Yeah, so both Patrick Philbin and Pat Cipollone interviewed for the January 6th committee. A lot of people, including myself, believe that this is adjacent to that investigation in one way or another. But, they were very careful to not talk about things that were either attorney-client privileged or executive privileged. So there wasn't too much that Cipollone and Philbin talked about. In this criminal investigation, my sense is, since it's ancillary and adjacent to the January 6th investigation that DOJ is also pursuing, is I think they were probably very careful in the information that they were able to share. And obviously their information is not that recent. They hadn't been to Mar-a-Lago. They hadn't looked at the contents of these alleged boxes and these documents. But we're going to see, I think, ultimately, the predication and what they believe, what the Department of Justice believes was the reason to pursue this search warrant, which, as we've talked about before, John, is unprecedented, extraordinary, and I think history is going to show probably was draconian in its need at that time.
Now, if this really is about January 6th, and it has all the markings of that, but they're trying to say it was about the Presidential Records Act and then about declassified information, everything seems to kind of focus back to January 6th. But do you think that they did this under false pretense?
I'm not ready to say that yet, John, because there's just a few more things I would like to see, including the affidavit. What I would tell you is, while they can't grab anything that's not covered by the warrant, this warrant was very broad. And based on them scooping up 3 passports of President Trump, you can expect that they were scooping up everything. Go back to your beginning of the show. You talked about how the search being broadcast essentially on TV for the Trump team to watch. They watched the methods and means with which the FBI acquired this information that they took a week ago. And so that's, I think, obviously we're seeing a little tease of that, but it's very clear that they were indiscriminate in what they grabbed. And, you know, I can only speculate that it's in hopes of supporting not only this one case, but also the January 6th investigation.
We also wanted to ask you about former Vice President Mike Pence today at an event in New Hampshire. He apparently said that he would consider testifying before the January 6th committee. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Mike Pence, obviously, for 4 years was a very loyal vice president to President Trump. It ended on a very bad note. And, you know, Pence is going to have to find his path in this. I will tell you that based on what happened politically to Liz Cheney last night, if I'm Mike Pence, I would just be a little concerned about trying to cooperate with the January 6th committee, since it is a one-sided, you know, show trial made for TV special. But at the same time, you know, Vice President Pence, in my experience, is a decent and honorable man, and he'll make decisions based on, you know, kind of his own code.